Techie Talk time here on AM Quincy with State Representative Techie Chan of Quincy. How are you, Techie?
Hey, it's good to see you today, Joe. Things aren't too bad. Very busy as the session's kind of gotten started.
I know. Here we are. It's everything old is new again on Beacon Hill.
Well, in many ways, yes. Two out of three members of leadership are existing: Speaker Mariano and Senate President Spoka, and of course, we have new Governor Maura Healey. However, at the same time, though, she was the Attorney General. So in some ways, yeah, it's new but old at the same time. But as a remind folks, when you start a new legislative session, the whole slate is wiped clean. All the bills have expired. All the committee assignments have expired. All the leadership positions have expired. We did vote for the speaker, which is why we have a speaker. It's the first thing we do at the beginning of a session. Same with the Senate president. They have a Senate president. So at least there's essentially a manager of the building. The job is not just policy, it's actual office management. So obviously we need somebody to, keep the wheels moving beyond just, making committee assignments or setting the schedule for the legislative calendar. It's more involved than just that responsibility. And, we'll obviously missed the bill filing. There's not much to talk about yet until I finish this bill filing process and see if my staff will kill me or not, given the fact that working very hard for me on taking requests, putting the list together for me to review, and try to make some very short time decisions now on what's a good bill to file, what not is to file, and of course taking requests. We're going to get hit on my email with large number of co-sponsor requests starting now. I mean, it's already begun, and suspect for the next 4 or 6 weeks, I'm just get flooded by, I want you to co-sponsor this, co-sponsor that. And then now we have to sift through all those emails and try to make some judgment calls on, which ones make sense for me to co-sponsor. Folks, just to let you know, if you co-sponsor every single thing out there, it's not great optics. It shows you don't really make decisions. And you may not always be happy if I say yes or say no, but at least, make an effort to think about it before you say yes or no.
Right. I'm sure one of the biggest challenges is responding intelligently in saying no, right? And giving your reasons for saying no.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's simply the fact that, I've already done too many. I've run out of bandwidth to adopt more policy issues or resolutions or what people are looking for. Or I just don't have time to understand it right now. I do like to know what I'm getting into at some level. Given the volume, I'm like, okay, this is going to take a lot longer to sort out down the road. Let's see how this plays out with the committee levels. And, I can always, join support at a future date. I don't think people should assume that, co-sponsorship is the end or be all. I also remind folks that the bills will change. Coming out of committees, the various committees bills go through. I mean, maybe I don't like what happened when they change it, or I may do like what happened when they change it.
Right.
You don't, so
yeah. It's easier to change your mind about saying no than change your mind about saying yes.
Yeah, I mean, people accuse of politicians flip-flopping, and I get it. Trust me, I have the same frustration. But at the same time, though, I've been around long enough to understand the processes. That if you lock yourself to a single position, not really considering the full breadth of options and topics and considerations of other folks that come talk to you, as you kind of learn and weigh on the whole issue. It may be better to make a decision later, or sometimes it's better to change your mind if you discover that was just not a good idea, right? And some things look good in the service. I mean, back at the very beginning of my tenure, right to repair, you've heard about right to repair more than one side of my mouth now. It sounded really great on paper until I really kind of deep dived into intellectual property protection issues, the issues regarding whether or not people should pay for mechanics should pay for same as dealers that also pay for training and access to information services. I mean, people forget they wanted free things. It wasn't like, hey, just, this is about rights of consumers. No, they wanted free stuff to do it as opposed to other folks that had to pay. But on the flip side is the right of access. If everyone can pay for it, then everyone should have equal right to it. So it turned out to be a lot more convoluted than the soundbite or the flyer presented once we actually had more time to really look at what's going on regarding equity, not necessarily just equity for consumers to pick a repair shop, not just equity for independent mechanics to be able to repair cars, but equity regarding access to materials and equal access for payment. I can buy it and you're giving it to somebody else. Well, why can't I buy it, right? It's like saying going to a store, you want to buy, an item and they say no, you can't, but someone else in front of you did, and you can't, both your cash is still good.
Right, right. Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
yeah, there's a lot more involved. So I mean, this is kind of part of the early part of the process where people kind of assume I just know everything. Okay, I like to pretend I do, but it doesn't mean I do.
Hey, did you attend the inaugurations yesterday for the Attorney General and I think Secretary of State and some other constitutional officers?
Yeah, the Attorney General, the State Treasurer, the Secretary of State, and the State Auditor were all sworn in yesterday at noontime. The auditor actually had a ceremonial swearing in, tongue twister, at Methuen High School last evening.
Oh,
I did not attend those. We actually held a House Asian Caucus organizational meeting yesterday, where we elected officers, set up an agenda, caught up with our issues of the family. We actually have not had an in-person meeting since 2019. So it was actually good for us to get together. And also our staffs haven't actually talked to each other in 3 years, really, in a room. So it gave the staffers to all reconnect as well. No, I didn't attend. We were caught up on another meeting as we were discussing agenda items and tabling agenda items and coming back probably in 4 to 6 weeks to have a continuation regarding things that were tabled on the agenda. So yeah, no, I didn't make it. We had other work to do.
So it's Bill Galvin now is the only male in the executive branch or in the top tier anyway.
Well, it's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Both of us remember that one time, and the last time we remember seeing a first constitutional officer, I think was Clapwood, wasn't it?
Yes, Clapwood, yeah.
And then when I showed up here, it was Weld, Cellucci, Malone, Galvin, and DiNucci.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the first constitutional woman officer I've worked with in any capacity of my time there was Shannon O'Brien, state treasurer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
And Jean Griff with Paul Cellucci.
So a lot has changed in a relatively short period of time, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, within the last 25 or so years, because you had Shannon O'Brien, the state treasurer, Jane Swift as lieutenant governor with Paul Cellucci. Who else do we have? We had obviously we had a female attorney general in Martha Coakley. We had Sue Bump as state auditor. We have Deb Goldberg as again still continuation of state treasurer. Obviously, Maura Healey was the second woman attorney general, and now first woman elected governor. Jane Swift was acting governor. She was never elected. She was
That's right.
She took the acting governor's role under the Constitution. It actually says the word acting governor in the Constitution. Also, she left to be ambassador to Canada. So, yeah, lots changed in my tenure at Beacon Hill from when I staffed and interned to now being elected on the leadership structure of the legislature, including the Senate as well, where Terry Murray became the first female Senate president. And then we had this brief period of Stan Rosenberg, but followed by Harriet Chandler, who's retired, and now Karen Spilka. And, even in the House, we had Claire Clonan, who's now the ambassador of Ireland, as female majority leader under Speaker Mariano. So, women have come quite far, and the swearing in day replenished some of the ranks of the women, which, there's no fault to anybody's. They just found greener pastures and moved on. And this is, this is like any other career. People will find better opportunities and better take them.
Yeah, we talked about this before. It's the public sector everywhere is having struggles trying to keep and maintain workers because of the pressures from the outside private sector.
Exactly. And legislators have more career skills than just being a legislator. Right? We are real people. We had lives. Well, maybe not me, but I mean, we all have lives prior to being an elected official. And, they have a lot of different skill sets that just been enhanced from the time in State House, where you got to broaden horizons of learning and working in very specific areas of public policy.
Any news on committee assignments yet from the speaker, Tacky?
Nope.
Okay.
No idea. I have no ideas. I mean, I can sit here and speculate and guess, and I'm sure the speaker will get word I've been sitting here talking to you, speculating and guessing. But in all honesty, don't have any ideas. We're very aware that all aware that he has a number of leadership positions to fill, particularly in my jury leader position, which I just said Claire Cronin is in Ambassador Island. She has a second leader position because of Joe Wagner from Chicopee retired. He has a Florida division leader, which is Tom Golden, who became city manager of Low. You guys can see the pattern here as I'm talking about people's career changes. Yep. He has a few chairmanship positions open, including Environment and Natural Resources Committee, which is actually very important, Joint Committee on Natural Resources and Agriculture. And you have Cybersecurity, another new committee that has no one there, as well as municipalities. Another committee doesn't have anybody chairing at the moment in the House. So there's quite a few opportunities, including some other vice chairs as well, for the speaker to shuffle people around. And we're not oblivious to politics and optics. I mean, the speaker is very aware of the optics associated with who he puts in leadership. But it's not just about race, gender, and political experience and geography. You got to make sure the people you put in are competent. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of rolling dice in this gig, where you are just seeing if a person has the capacity to lead, and being a chair or a leader in the leadership team, you have to lead, and that means management, staff management, member management, public management, press management. I mean, it's quite involved.
Yeah, and not to mention scheduling your own personal life in between all of that.
Absolutely. And how people manage that is not my decision, obviously. I manage my own committee. Well, I managed. I'm technically not a chair. No, I'm not chair at the moment. But it's responsibility. And some people may decide they want to change chairs. I've asked the speaker to change chairs. And some folks may look for a high-powered vice chair. For example, the vice chair Ways and Means is not a bad gig. For some folks, some people like to be a vice chair in a high position committee. So I can't speak to, again, anyone's specific desires they make to the speaker. I'm not privy to those conversations. But the speaker is committed to meeting every House member regarding their requests. At least let them all make their case about whether or not they should be assigned to certain committees.
Okay, that's going to take some time for sure.
Yeah, I intend to stay at consumer protection and professional licensure. However, we'll see if the speaker is going to make that recommendation to the Democratic caucus. He still has to put the slate before the caucus, and the caucus will have to vote on the slate. That being said, I don't remember the last time someone's ever challenged the slate.
Yeah, that really wouldn't put you in good stead with the speaker if you do that.
No, I'm just being honest, folks. I've never heard of a slate challenge in my observation of Beacon Hill, but you actually may see that in D.C. As the committee assignments continue to roll out, we'll see if there's any leaks to the media about how the Republican caucus committee assignments went regarding that as well, because they actually can fight the caucus on an assignment if a member desires, or rally votes in a caucus for an assignment and try to leverage position. I don't know.
Such a fight just to appoint the speaker down there, so I'm sure there's going to be more controversy.
Absolutely, and those caucuses are done in private, and it requires one of the members to provide a leak, or maybe going smooth as silk, and there is no story to speak of at all. I mean, kind of media has kind of waited out to see if someone said anything.
2023. Now there is an official millionaires tax in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of accountants and lawyers are trying to figure this one out. I'm fairly confident that people of means were able to figure how to work around this. We're a flat tax state. Yep. Our deductibles, we do have other entity mechanisms. There are corporate entity mechanisms that accountants and attorneys with plenty of experience beyond myself will be able to work it out. Do I think they're all going to be able to escape paying the millionaire's surcharge of 4% of every dollar over $1 million? Probably not. Can they reduce their tax burden? Probably so. But I mean, reduced tax burden means maybe spreading out their financials over a different spectrum of streams of income or entities, or you can always move things to trust funds. I mean, a separate end, again, the taxable entities, but it changes the tax burden load. So, And if you're, an S corp or a C corp or LLPs and those things, there are accountants that can help reduce the tax burden through expenses, or maybe creating a salary position, and retain shares. I mean, again, I'm not an attorney that works in this area, but there are ways to do this stuff. And it's actually no different from before the millionaire's tax anyway. They always had those mechanisms available. But now we're a two-tier tax system for the first time that I'm aware of. That we're no longer a single tax income tax system, and we'll see how it plays out. So the voters said it was all right, and the legislature is going to have to implement, but more accurately, the Department of Revenue is going to have to set up the regulatory processes of how to do it. I mean, it's not a complicated law. We're not going to really amend it. I mean, it's not going to do anything with it. So Department of Revenue needs to, put out the guidelines and the regulations and the appropriate, there'll be a new form. The Form 1 is going to look a little different.
Right. Yeah. Any progress on sports betting, Jackie?
I don't know. I mean, we've reached the point where we've got some of the land-based casinos, right? The physical structures getting sports betting should be coming out sometime after March Madness. Is very confusing what's going on here. The online stuff, I think, has proven a little tricky. I've spoken in the past about the fact that I've asked the Gaming Commission to look at cybersecurity more seriously, given the fact that land-based casinos and, as you've all seen, various other entities have had breaches, including one of the password security companies. I can't remember which one, but when you get you sign up and pay for a service where that you only need one password, but you have all your other passwords stored in one location. I mean, there's a security breach there. There's always been my kind of hesitation about those companies where it's like, oh yeah, I'll give you all my passwords so I can use one password to access all my online information until they get hacked.
Right. Yeah.
And, it's somewhat unclear how that goes. And I had like a $16 settlement payment from Cheesecake Factory for their hack regarding a credit card data breach.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, big settlement coming, right? And then T-Mobile has another one that's like $25 or something. I mean, these class actions, as you guys all know, it starts at millions of dollars, plus you take your cut. The lawyers take their cut, and then what's left over is distributed among the consumers that are signed up to try to get a piece of what's remaining. And it's not a lot of money, as you can hear, but I mean, it's size of the civil penalty that gives the companies pause to try not do this again, even though it seems like a drop in the bucket. But if you're talking like 20, 30, $40 million, yeah, maybe it's a drop in the bucket size of the company, but it's still a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And
plus the bad publicity that goes with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the insurers are probably not pleased with the payouts either.
Right. Yeah.
So, keep an eye on your email. If you're not clear if it's legit or not, you always can contact the companies directly to find out about these settlements. The websites are pretty good on giving the right links or call numbers to the offender regarding data breaches. And, this is a state requires data breach reporting to the Attorney General. But, litigation's country, and in these cases, rightfully so, in class actions. What also takes years and years to get through. So, remember correctly, one of our Attorney General candidates basically made a living on a whole lot of money she made on these type of class actions.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, speaking of, just read this morning about a proposal to ban TikTok on government-issued devices. So I forget who proposed that.
Yeah, okay. You should not be using personal stuff on employers' devices. Let's get that out there first. I have a private cell phone. I pay for my own cell phone. It is not a government-issued cell phone. I can do what I want with my cell phone. However, I do have Microsoft Teams on my cell phone and Microsoft Outlook. The State House can wipe my phone out on a button. So my choice is get a second cell phone and pay for that myself, or keep this one. So, I mean, backing up my pictures is very important these days, right? In case my phone decides the whole thing's dead and you're nothing left. But if you're an employee who has a business cell phone, will be governed or private sector, I'm sorry, you should not be using it for personal use. Whether it be TikTok or Facebook or Twitter, if it's not in use. I mean, when I was in the AG's office, attorney generals that got assigned cell phones have two. One is strictly business use, and one was obviously you pay for yourself. But particularly the fact in the AG's office when I worked there, the leadership teams, had sensitive information because attorney-client privilege, and also non-disclosure issues regarding sensitive information. The AG's office had to be kept inside a loop, and those phones were covered by the AG's office where things were done. I mean, you can keep the numbers, but I mean, you just transfer those devices back, and that's that. I mean, you want to take a phone number with you these days; it's not a big deal, but
Right.
800 phones, and you go back to the Attorney General's office. Same as any employer. So, yeah, banning TikTok is sure. I mean, fine, but you should not have any personal items on your cell phone. Period. If it's not your cell phone.
Well, yeah, I was curious as to why that particular app was singled out. Why not just apps in general?
Well, I mean, let's get past the whole, hey, employers should be responsible to ensure the employee is not putting stupid stuff on your devices. Obviously, this is a big media thing regarding data security issues associated with TikTok and being owned by a Chinese company.
Right.
And, as some of you may be aware, many of the Chinese companies, the central companies, are state-owned or partially state-owned. TikTok actually is not state-owned to my knowledge. It is privately owned. However, since it is based in China, it is 100% subject to China's laws. No different from the U.S. If you have a presence in the U.S. as a business, even though you're a foreign entity and you have like a footprint here, you're subject to U.S. laws, right? This ain't complicated, folks, right? It's the same everywhere you go. If you're there, a footprint there, you subject yourself to the laws of that country. In TikTok's case, the concern revolves the national security law of China, where on demand of the government, their equivalent of Department of Justice, whatever you want to call it, the law enforcement demands you hand over all data that you have to give over the data. So a lot of arguments have been made from things like WeChat and TikTok and other ByteDance and Tencent and other Chinese companies is that, okay, well, we can work around that by putting our service outside of China.
Oh, okay.
But the problem, again, is that you're subject to Chinese law. In China, so the Chinese law, just no different, from anywhere else. They will crack down on you if you don't give them what they want. So the reality is once the crackdown by law enforcement begins, you're going to start giving up the data that's sitting in foreign countries. So that's a concern. Secondly,
yeah.
Yeah, and it is TikTok. So, I mean, if you're like the Russian soldiers who are using TikTok to tell your positions away, I mean, you get what's coming to you, people. I mean, duh. It's that simple. So again, you should not be using personal apps on government or employers' devices, period. Just saying that, folks. Again, for like the fifth time. But I mean, the concern again is that perhaps there's a ability for them to worm their way into your cell phone device from TikTok, concerned about using their algorithms to learn more, so much about you. They can use that as compromised positions against government officials, the ability to use the algorithm to start to predict the user's phone and send specific messages. As we all know, social media has a huge influence regarding how we communicate. But I mean, one of the myths is that it has a special algorithm. It's actually no different algorithm than Twitter or Facebook or Meta now, or any other shopping or advertising or political calculations they use on the internet to find out what makes you attracted to certain types of messaging. TikTok doesn't use any different calculations than any other company. I mean, the algorithm is proprietary, but the purpose would be the same. It would be very different from anybody else's. It's really about a security issue of physically having the apps on your device and potentially becoming a security breach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're at home and your teenagers are using TikTok, I'm fairly confident they're not the target audience of a spy device, right? But it's also why Huawei phones are not allowed in the U.S. It's the fear that they are potentially hardware to provide spy devices, for example.
Yeah.
And also Huawei doesn't use Google-based or iOS or Microsoft or Unix based operating systems. They have their own unique operating system because in China, you can't use Droid operating systems in that country. You have to use your own because Google is essentially banned from China. So as a result, all Google related products can't get there unless you use a VPN.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So there's a bigger picture here for sure. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can decide on what you think, but I mean, my first gut reaction when I saw it was like, you shouldn't even be having it on there. I mean,
So it's already a non-starter. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, what is wrong with you all? Why do you need a law to do this? This should be something as corporate policy, government policy. You shouldn't be doing this. And again, the war in Russia, right? I mean, those who have been watching the Ukrainian war, the Russian soldiers are tick-tocking away their position
Mm-hmm.
in the war, and I don't think they've really stopped.
Probably not. Well, I mean, a lot of them aren't professional soldiers, if you will, with the conscript that they have. So they're just regular folks like you and me that all of a sudden find themselves at war.
Yeah, they're going to TikTok their journal through the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about the legal issues the president is facing now, Tacky, with these documents that are being uncovered?
Well, as you all know, I hate working from home, so that's more of an argument not to work from home. Obviously, tongue-in-cheek comment there, but obviously, the highest level of government, your work is 24/7. We talked about this workload before, but especially executive branch folks, especially all of executive branch folks have a no real like getaway, and we all aware that even when on vacation, their vacation home is set up already for secure communication, whether it been 50 years ago with telephones, today with web-based devices, as well as national security as part of someone's vacation
Oh yeah,
day.
Hyannisport had an emergency red telephone for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what decade you're in. The national security folks have your vacation home ready for work. Lord forbid something really, really bad happens, right? And, with cell phone devices, obviously, you're more reachable to your colleagues in government. It's not like people stop calling you because you're away. It's not like you're not getting text messages. I will personally attest to the fact that when I'm on vacation, I get plenty of text messages and voicemails from folks. So am I surprised? To be honest, not really. I hate to be like that because it's a lot of documents. You kind of like shuffling stuff around, and then you misplace items. What's a little shocking is the lack of accountability or invoicing. The government, particularly at that level, particularly national security level, they should have an inventory of saying this has been taken out, like a library card, right? They should say, we have a checklist. This is what you have. We want a checklist when you come back.
Right.
And that's the thing I was a little surprised by, not just with the president, former President Trump and current President Biden. I was a little surprised there's no checklist by anybody saying, hey, this is missing.
Right. Yeah.
Where is it? Unless
should be a paper trail on that document at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it all analog too. If you're concerned about security, you can just do analog, and you can always put it on code. It doesn't like you have to put a piece of say dictate, secrets of the French government. You don't have to put that on, that you can always write a code, right? Reference number. So I was really surprised through this whole ordeal with both Trump and now Biden. It's like no one has an inventory.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe something will change after this has been revealed.
Yeah, to me, that's a very common sense issue. If you have truly sensitive documents. If it's a public document, who cares, right? Anybody can get their hands on it. It doesn't really matter, right? But it's also got like political theater too. On the one side, you have a former president who's fighting in court to say, that's my stuff, essentially. And the other side is like, hey, okay, fine. Everyone just comb through the house, find everything, and get rid of it back to the government, and just and then you have something again it's unprecedented really in these times where you have a Department of Justice who is actively doing investigation of two folks back-to-back leaders of the free world, so to speak, at the same time with two very different cases. They're not the same folks. They're not the same identical in terms of what the documents are, because we don't know what they are, right? There's no sensitivity. One is actively fighting it, the other one's cooperating. Both have special counsels, which again kind of shields the DOJ in some ways regarding the investigation. But often these investigations also occur after you leave the presidency, as we've seen other folks where they will look into whether it rose to a level of criminal issue, but they were like peeks around seeing what's going on. And everyone remembers the Hillary Clinton emails, another one, right? And then Donald Trump had the same issue regarding emails. People forgot that story already. I promise the Department of Justice hasn't forgotten that story, but the media clearly has forgotten that one. And but again, this is the highest level of jobs in the nation. Executive jobs again is never ends. You're always working, and I get that. But what are you doing here with this stuff? And it's also analog. Thankfully, it's not digital. And it doesn't appear President Trump made any PDF copies.
Mhm.
Hopefully, of that stuff. But I'm sure the Department of Justice is hunting this information down. So on the plus side, it's paper, and paper can be acquired and destroyed as opposed to be transmitted easily.
Right, right. And also that was, private residence versus public property too. So that's another distinct difference.
There's a distinct difference as well. However, as I said before, your work follows you wherever you go.
Yeah.
And let's say it was commenting about going vacation. The whole place is basically a secure workplace while you get there.
Mm.
Expectations private residents should also do that as well. And there's also leads to a question regarding congressional members regarding security clearances, right? How much information do they really get? Do they actually get any paper too? I have no idea. This actually leads to a whole lot of new questions beyond the president. It involves Congress because they have security clearance. And obviously, they got to look at other folks that have sensitive information in the executive branch.
Yeah.
And what other protocols. Again, I'm shocked there's no inventory.
Yeah. How is it dealt with at the state level? Are there, first of all, are there confidential documents at the state level?
Yeah, there are. What they are, I don't know because
They're confidential.
Yeah, and I have no security clearance for anything. So I can tell you I don't know.
Yeah.
We do have a public records law that does dictate what is confidential and what is public accessible. I mean, I've talked before in my time at the Attorney General's office, things like electrical transmission maps are considered national security data. I cannot tell you what's on them anymore. It's been a long time. I literally don't know what's on them. But I mean, obviously you got that kind of stuff. And of course, criminal justice system, protection of certain identities regarding witnesses and victims.
Right, right. Juvenile identities, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have some like private stuff, but do we have like national security stuff? I couldn't tell you. Again, I'm not, I'm not on that level to know. I'm aware that the chair of the Joint Committee on Public Safety, Homeland Security does have some access to sensitive materials. However, they also have to sign waivers to get those materials.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, they never needed to yet.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of those provisions created after 9/11.
Right.
Because, obviously, if there's a state security issue and the legislature needs to get involved, public safety committee be in charge of getting involved.
Gotcha. Okay.
But no idea. No idea.
Here, I don't know if you saw, issue just came up to my mind was funding to replace the Cape Cod bridges was rejected. I don't understand. What are we hearing on the state level?
Well, a little bit. I'm a little bit far from the Cape Cod Bridge, so
yeah, I know.
I haven't heard a lot. I just my understanding is a lot of it is federal funding to begin with.
Yeah.
To do, and I can tell you what's going on over there. It's been an ongoing issue for a long time about putting more access to Cape Cod, but it's has a real Coast Guard component because of the nature of the channel. If I remember correctly, that's a man-made channel.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah, because that was Cape Cod was actually part of the mainland.
Yes, it was a peninsula, and before it was a man-made island. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not misremembering that. So obviously, there's a federal component because I don't think the state paid for that cut through.
No, it was Army Corps through and through. However, this time around, there is state funding involved in replacing these bridges, but the federal government is not ponying up.
Yeah, and it's a federal project, so we want them to pony up. I couldn't explain. I don't know. I can't explain why that happened.
Okay.
I would need to talk to someone from the Cape delegation.
Yeah, we'll see if the transportation secretary comes back to Massachusetts anytime soon. He's got his hands full right now with what's going on in the airline industry.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of bad news at the same time, whether it be snow or travel, and even traffic. Yesterday, I was at the State House, and morning traffic was a snarl. It's weird getting back into the whole stuck and not moving in a car for a while.
Yes, indeed. Any movement on the MBTA that we should talk about today?
Well, there's nothing new to talk about until they get an MBTA general manager. I think they're kind of in
Right.
a holding pattern in terms of like new initiatives. As we've seen the many billboards around the state, they're looking to hire still. You may recall they're short about 1,000 employees, but
Mhm.
it's a two-step process. First, they got to, look at applicants and hire and get people who want to be hired. And secondly, is the training process. You just don't
Yeah.
get some place to drive a train or a bus. You actually have to go through a training process and pass the training process. You can't pass the training process. Obviously you shouldn't be driving a bus or a train, right?
Right.
As well as hiring, electricians, railway people, and laborers and other folks, as well as people in the executive offices, accountants, lawyers, and so forth. So, throughout the MBTA system, there is a need for hire. And again, we talked about this earlier. It's a very tight job market for employers.
Yeah, very much so. And they're having these equipment issues too with this train manufacturing company, and the actual trains themselves having mechanical issues.
Yeah, we're just talking about TikTok, right? The Springfield manufacturing plant is a Chinese company. There was a lot of controversy of it, whether or not it's actually part of or partially owned by a Chinese state-owned company, meaning it's a subsidiary of another company that's a Chinese-owned rail company. It was the lowest bidder by far and none, by like $200+ million, I think. I mean, it was very cheap. And now you have these issues regarding the cars here. Now, the cars are assembled in Springfield, but the parts come from all over the world. And
Right.
those who don't realize, the MBTA, as well as every rail line in the world, is customized construction. There is no uniform standard regarding public transportation vehicles. There really isn't. So if you're in England versus Hong Kong versus Boston versus DC, I mean, everyone's got a different spec on what they need on their cars.
Right.
Size, shape. We have different tunnel systems. As you all know, we have a lot of curves inside our tunnel system that requires our cars to have certain bendable parts, so to speak, with the trolleys connected so they can turn correctly. Same with the Green Line. Obviously, you've ever done the Green Line, the car size does matter.
Yeah. The track widths are all different. Yeah.
Yeah, to do it all properly. So the fact that the assembly plant is unable to deliver safe cars to spec is extraordinarily troubling. I think definitely does need investigation. The Joint Committee Transportation chairs, whenever they're appointed, will likely have to do this. I know they had started conversations about this during the wintertime in the legislature. We've had some conversations in the building about this, but we need committee chair assignments so people can follow through. Right. And then definitely the newer governor, as well as whomever is going to be the new general manager, definitely needs to fully investigate this and review their contract. Maybe it's time to, initiate contract penalties if there are penalty opportunities. But we're also kind of trapped here because it's not like we can just find another car assembly company now. We have to put a new bid. Mm-hmm. And there's not that many of these assembly plants on the planet. There's a handful of them. Worldwide, there's only a handful of assembly plants, and then we still have to get these parts assembled and shipped to the right locations for assembly. Then have to ship the cars here. One of the attractive features of having this in Springfield is, of course, the geography. We don't have to ship it from like Canada or France, right?
No, we should ship it down to Mass Pike. That's all.
Yeah, much more affordable. And Springfield is a rail hub. And the hope was that this company would create economic stimulus in that geographic zone through jobs to provide other similar services of this type to other public or privately held rail systems in the United States. Obviously, with this news, it doesn't create new business. I mean, bad news doesn't create new business. But I agree that there needs to be an investigation done.
I think it was a surprise to a lot of folks, myself included, that the Department of Public Utilities was the oversight agency for the MBTA.
Yeah, I'm the only one not surprised because I had to deal with DPU. So
yeah,
they do towing, parking, other transportation. They do bus. They do the MBTA. It is not new. It's something you've done before. Remember the Fenghua bus fires? I think somebody remember that. That was a DPU investigation as well as some national investigations as well. But the DPU did check those buses and shut them down. Mm-hmm. So and if you got towing problems, it goes to DPU also. So obviously, clearly, I know because
you should.
Yeah, I've been dealing with DPU most of my career. So, I mean, it's not like we're on Windows DTE, Department of Telecommunication what was it, DTE, I think, Department of Telecommunication and Energy at one time. I mean, I remember it's in previous incarnations. So it's not new to me. But again, it's a leadership issue, right? Who's running the agency should be held responsible why they are not doing something. I'm tired of these excuses from executive branch folks with the Baker administration. And I do not want to hear this from the Hume administration that, well, it's too much work, or we didn't know, or, it's not our job. Dude, you're appointed to do a job. Do your job. I have very simple standards. Just do your job. So, I mean, it's always a litany of excuses. And I just don't have the patience for that.
All right. It's the year of the rabbit, Jackie.
It is. We talked about Chinese New Year last time, and I couldn't remember my animals. So you did your homework, and I didn't. It is the year of the rabbit. Lunar New Year starts tonight. Saturday night is the Lunar New Year Eve. We'll be doing the group Zoom call, and we'll probably have some kind of family meal some point. COVID and family illnesses rolling around my own family has kind of changed our whole schedule because, the flu's still floating around, colds are floating around. I mean, there's a lot of respiratory diseases flowing around that's not COVID related. So we'll figure that out on a family level. But this Sunday, the 22nd, will be the Lunar Day New Year. And it's the most important holiday in Chinese families or any other family that follows the lunar calendar in this particular schedule. So places like Korea and Japan do recognize calendar Vietnamese, recognize this calendar Vietnamese. Tet was at the World Trade Center, I believe, last Sunday. The Quincy Resources will have their event on February 5th at the North Quincy High School, first having done this since 2019.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been a bit more cautious regarding attending things, as we've seen real mass, particularly in crowded rooms. But, a bit more comfort level because the vaccination rate could be higher. We are getting vaccinated. People are getting boosted. It still is happening. As people kind of also wait for, I've noticed a little trend here. People are kind of waiting as we're heading towards the peak areas to get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Or trying to get the maximum protection time for these for the antibodies, so that can extend into the peak season.
Right, exactly. Yeah. February 5th, North Quincy High School here is when the festival will take place, and I think there was already a private event with Quincy Asian Resources for some of the community members.
Yeah, and senior housing is actually activating some of theirs. There's a lot of Chinese and Vietnamese folks in senior housing, and they've been running their own smaller events. Obviously, people, again, like any holiday, families are going to try to get together. The Chinese restaurant business is very, very busy during Chinese New Year season. They kind of need this hit in the arm, the shot in the arm at this point, given the fact they had basically nobody going to Chinese New Year banquets. I have been invited to my first banquet on the 18th with one of the family associations. So I've been, it's starting my route. But I've been told by my friend who was one of these family associations that the Chinatown price has gone up from $388 a table to almost $600 a table.
Wow.
Yeah, inflation, labor workforce shortage. So the profit margins on there for fundraising is easily at Chinese dinner banquets in Chinatown. So I've been informed, we expect to see less invites, not because they don't want to do it, but the margin of cost for them and the target audience of people who want to attend, there's no money to be made.
Yeah, and they don't have the staff to serve them.
That's correct. And you all feel inflation prices, and you've all seen it at the price of restaurants, at grocery stores. So all of us are feeling it. But it also does have an adverse effect on large events where people do banquet style meals or even catered style meals. It eats to the profit margin. Your choice as a charitable organization to jack up your price to cover those additional costs, or you keep the same price structure or not as high, and you take a smaller margin as a profit for the not-for-profit or charitable organization. No one's really talked about it at all, but it's true. So the most cost-effective way is actually direct mail now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it takes away the personal aspect of it, though, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it does, because part of why we do these things is to gather together, talk to people working in agencies about their progress, a chance for people to show off their progress, obviously, and things like silent auctions and other ways for business organizations to be supportive beyond just direct cash donation. Those are a little bit tougher to do. And also credit card surcharges. I think any business will tell you, or if you use the credit card surcharge for government services, the surcharges are going to be going up. The Visa, MasterCard exchanges of the world, even PayPal and Stripe and all these other non-Visa MasterCard groups have all jacked up the percentage of the fees they're collecting from the business owners, which then is passed to you visibly as part of their overall business price structure. So it's a combination of the fee transaction increases for credit cards, obviously inflationary price, the labor increase price, all of it's converging at once, which is affecting all of us. And charitable organizations, are hurting there. So I always like to encourage sitting at checkout. Yes, it can be slow because of the mail or dropped off, but if you want to help a local organization, please do try to consider writing a check.
Yeah, it's the most cost-effective way for them and put the most amount of donation toward its intended purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're saving the money on the transaction fee costs if you're using credit card.
Well, I will. First of all, let's ask folks to tell you how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, we're still in the same office for now until committee assignments. So I'm still in room 42 at the State House. We are staffed. 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the phone number. And Tackey.Chan, TACKEY.CHAN at mahouse.gov, as my Boston accent came out again. And of course, you got State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook and the @Tackey Chan Twitter. As we talked about last few times, don't social media me. Just pick up the phone or send an email. At this point, it's the scam stuff. I mean, it's gotten crazy. So again, don't open emails you don't know where they're from. An email you know where they're from, double check it actually came from them, because I've seen a new one regarding opening Google Doc files. Some people I know have been hacked, actually more than a few now. And again, just like open your Google Doc file. I'm like, you don't know how to use Google Doc. They just know by the address. So they clearly got hacked. And don't open those things.
Okay. Yeah. So if you get an email from somebody that that looks odd, it's probably a scam.
Probably a scam, or they've been hacked. So
okay.
I had 3 of my personal email already come through last week. And obviously we have a screener for Microsoft Outlook, but it doesn't screen everything.
Right. Especially if it's a valid email, it'll come through. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and of course, TackeyChan.org is our website that as we start a new session now, it'll be updated, reflect the new bill numbers, new links, and things like that. So we have to do an update. But the website at MAlegislature.gov will be seeing a massive update once we get closer to March, as we complete bill filing process and the clerk's offices are able to process the bills to get bill numbers and committee assignments. There'll be a huge update on MAlegislature.gov.
Oh, good. Okay. We'll look forward to that. All righty. And in the meantime, I will wish you a Gong Hei Fo Choi. Happy New Year to you, your family, your staff.
Well, Gong Hei Fo Choi. I wish you all a happy New Year, good fortune, and health and happiness.